Hello, everybody. Today is the much anticipated PPP loan forgiveness application video I have been promising for weeks. And the reason it has taken me weeks to do this is because it has continually changed. As a matter of fact, a class I took just a few days ago had to change its materials just moments before the class started because new guidance had come out. So those are the kinds of things we're working against right now and why it has taken so long for me to get this video out. Now, no, things are still changing. However, I feel like we have enough information right now to do this video so you can at least kickstart your forgiveness application and get things moving. It's not a perfect system, but there are people out there hard at work trying to make this as easy on you as possible, and we really appreciate that. In the meantime, you need to know a couple of things. Well, one thing in particular is as a CPA, I have to be very careful about how I help my clients with this process. There are two ways I can go about this. I can go about it in a consulting position, in which case there are really no issues there in how my firm has chosen to help our clients accomplish this goal. There are other firms and other CPAs who may be coming at this from a review perspective. And then what I mean by that is that there are going to be people out there who can and will do this entire process for you and submit directly to the bank, meaning you are not between the CPA and the bank. And that is perfectly fine. I just want to let people know that I am not doing that in my firm because it is considered a review activity, which for licensing purposes is a big distinction. And there are just a couple of reasons I don't want to do that. And the first reason is because I really want my clients to be involved in the process. I think it's important. And then the second reason is because a review activity requires a level of independence for my clients that I just really don't want to have. So that's another reason that we are not doing it out of our office. But again, I really, really like it when my clients are involved. If you are a client, make sure you are involved because you really need to understand what's going on. Now, in the next few clips here, you're going to see I actually recorded a few days, and you're going to hear me a few days ago, and you're going to hear me talk about the fact that there are some errors in the system. As of today, there are still errors in the system. So just make sure you're checking back and doing your due diligence and just know what the errors tend to be. But again, this process is going to help you get organized, and I'm actually very excited about it. So without much further ado, here we go.
Okay, so here we are with the PPP loan forgiveness application tool. I'm actually pretty happy with this tool. It still has a lot of bugs that they are still working out, and I do receive emails on a pretty much daily basis saying, hey, don't apply for forgiveness yet. We still aren't completely sure. There may be more guidance coming out, and on top of that, we've got to work up the bugs. As a matter of fact, the classes I've been taking, they've been changing their resources within a few minutes of the class starting in order to keep up with all of the new guidance. So just don't rush. However, I highly recommend that you start doing this now. It's really going to help you become much more organized and help walk you through the process and at least get you to where you need to be. So it's pretty simple to sign up. You're going to enter your email here. Don't use the CPA platform, use the small business platform. You're going to enter your email, you're going to get started, and they're going to walk you through a setup process. Once you are done with the setup process and you start doing your work, all you do is you come back, enter your email, and hit get started again, and they will send you a 4-digit code. So you don't even have to worry about waiting for or remembering an email. So we just have to wait for the code, which sometimes happens faster than other times. So just give it a minute here. But I wanted to make sure that you guys saw it all. And as you can see, all of the work that I've already put in is still here. I can update it. I can change things. It's still there. Now, you'll note that I have 2 companies in here because one company qualifies for the EZ application form and the other one does not and has to fill out the long form or the regular form. I've also, in the essence, in the essence of saving time and keeping this video down to a reasonable amount of time, I've already pre-filled the numbers, but we're going to walk through it a little bit. Theoretically, this is supposed to be able to go all the way through to submitting all the way to the bank. I have not taken it that far because clearly I'm not going to sign documents that aren't real or submit anything to a bank, but I will take you as far as I can here. And I'm going to start with the easy. It's all pretty standard stuff in the beginning. They're going to be asking you, so for some banking information, they want to know what covered period you are going to use. If you are an individual who signed the contract for the PPP loan when 8 weeks was the rule, you will actually be allowed to choose whether you use 8 weeks or 24 weeks. If you are an individual who signed this in mid to late June, after they changed the covered period to 24 weeks, then you have to use 24 weeks. In this case, we're going to say the client wants to use 8 weeks. They did spend the money in that period of time. Make sure you're talking with your CPAs, though, to make sure that one doesn't benefit you over another, because you wouldn't want to miss out on something. You'll want to make sure to check all the boxes and look at all the fine print. They've got a lot of instruction here, which is great. Clearly, if you've borrowed more than $2 million in PPP, you're going to check the box here. That doesn't apply to any of my clients. Then they're going to ask you some questions about your business. Again, all very standard stuff. Now, if you are a partnership and you have more principals, or you're an S corporation with multiple owners, you can add additional principals. You can answer the other demographic information or not, totally up to you. And then this is where it really starts to get interesting. This is the area of the application where they are trying to determine whether or not you qualify for the EZ application. And if you answer yes to any of these first 3 questions, then you get to use the EZ form. If none of the above qualify or apply to you, then you're going to be filling out the long form. So since we are doing the easy form, I just picked the last available one that I saw here as I was reading through. And in this case, it's you did not reduce your pay of any employee by more than 25%, and your business was unable to operate at full capacity during the covered period due to government requirements or guidance. And then this is all pretty easy too. Believe it or not, this is very streamlined. They want to know your payroll costs, but the thing I want you to make sure to note is that here it says compensation to owners. I know owners are on payroll, but it does not get put up into payroll costs, okay? You have to separate owner compensation over here in this box right here. For this 342.72, this little link right here, you're going to crawl in there and you're going to answer these questions. Now, clearly, if you have payroll, there is employer, state, and local taxes assessed on the employee compensation. I just didn't put anything there, but you will want to fill that in. And then any contributions to retirement plans, health plans, and insurance. Then it wants to know about mortgage interest payments, business rent or lease payments, and business utility payments. These are all of the acceptable uses of the PPP loan that are forgivable. Remember, there were a lot of acceptable uses of the PPP loan that were not forgivable. For example, it does note business mortgage interest payments. It does not mention principal. And I know many of you may have had to pay an entire mortgage payment using your PPP. Just know that is only the interest that is going to be forgivable. And it's going to auto-calculate this total salary and hourly wage reduction based on your answer from the first screen. Now we're to average FTE, and we're going to stop and we're going to talk about this for a minute.
Okay, let's talk about these FTEs, the full-time equivalents. This is the area I think is going to take you the most time to make sure you get together. But the first thing I want you to establish is whether or not you can qualify to do the EZ form. And if you saw at the beginning of the first clip here, it takes you through those questions. So if you did not reduce the number of employees working for you or their salary or hourly wages, or you couldn't have the same number of employees working for you because of the restrictions that have been placed upon your industry for COVID-19 purposes, but did not reduce salary or hourly wages, you may be able to go ahead and use the EZ form, in which case it makes the FTE calculations a lot easier. You are going to have to calculate for 3 different time periods, from February 15th of 2019 through June 30th of 2019, from January 1st of 2020 through February 29th of 2020, as well as your FTEs during the covered period that you had your loan. Now, the reason you're doing all 3 periods is to make sure that you use the prior period, whether it's the January through February or the February through June of 2019, and determine which one is better for you to use. For example, if you had a much higher FTE in January through February of this year than you did in 2019, you're going to most likely want to use those 2019 FTE numbers. So it gives you some choices, but those are the only 3 periods you're really going to need to worry too much about. However, if you have to fill out the long form or the regular form forgiveness application, there are more periods you are going to need to have to calculate. Now, those periods are February 15th through June 30th of this year, as well as the payroll period inclusive of February 15th. So for some of you, that may mean there are a few days prior to February 15th you're going to need in order to calculate FTE. We are trying to develop a spreadsheet here that makes this as easy as possible for everybody. I will let you know as soon as we have that going, which is why you don't see an on-screen calculation of FTE right now. But here's what you need to know. Each employee will need to have his or her own FTE calculated for each week. And it cannot include overtime. Full-time is considered 40 hours. If they worked 42 hours that week, then that week they were 1 FTE. You don't get to have 1.2 FTEs. So just keep that in mind. Do not include overtime from week to week. Now, again, we're working on that spreadsheet. It's still got some bugs. I'll let you know as soon as it's going. But for now, let's move on.
Okay, onward. All right, so there are a lot of auto-calculated on the rest of this screen. For the most part, you don't really have to worry about calculating most of it. It's going to calculate what your total payroll expenses were. They're going to compare it to your PPP loan amount, as you can see right here. But here's an important auto-calculation. This is where the system is trying to determine whether or not you used at least 60% of that loan for payroll. Remember, if you used it for any less than 60%, then 100% of the loan will have to be paid back. Not 50%, not 59%, it must be 60%. Now, the thing I think we have going for us here, number one, is that they drilled into our heads at the beginning of all of this that you had to use at least 75% of this for employment, for payroll. So most of you have probably already met this, but something you really need to look out for. Now, I'm not so sure about this calculation here. I'm not really liking the way it is reported, but you really don't have to worry about that. Again, it's just trying to determine that you used at least 60% for payroll. And then it tells you what your forgiveness amount is. And notice down here, it has actual forgivable amount and remaining loan balance after forgiveness. And here is where the problem lies with the calculations. If you remember, up above here, we had $5,000 EIDL advance grant. The problem is that any grant you received from the EIDL reduces the forgivability of the PPP. Now, while all of it may be forgivable, $5,000 of it should be paid back over the term of the loan because you received the grant. That's just not been fixed in here yet. I'm not sure why, but I'm sure it's just one of the bugs they're working out, and we're just going to keep having to come back and make sure. However, again, this is a great tool. It's going to be very helpful once they get it worked out. And then I don't take you any further than this screen because it requires you to sign some things and possibly send it to a bank, and I'm not going to do that. But this is an amazing area for a lot of different reasons. One, it has a bunch of forms that you need to sign and have ready. And not only that, it's also going over all of the the documents that you're going to need to upload if they apply. So clearly in this client's case, he didn't pay rent, he didn't pay utilities, so he's just going to be submitting payroll reports. But the other thing is, and I want you to keep this in mind, is the FTE documents. They want you to make sure and justify the FTEs that you calculated. So those spreadsheets that I was talking about are going to go a long way because you need to be able to show these two numbers so that you can justify what it is you are claiming for this return, or this application. So that covers it for the EZ. So let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and switch over to the long form. Okay, onto the long form we go. They make it pretty easy to navigate. And now I'm on to the individual, or I'm sorry, business that does not qualify for the easy. So it starts off very much like the easy application, just general information. I'm just going to go through it a little bit quickly. And then this is where it starts to diverge. Clearly, to do the long form, this isn't a business that doesn't qualify for any of these three exclusions that allow a company to use the easy form. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit next. We're going to go ahead. Let's do it because we're going to want to fill out everything. And remember, with the FTEs, I said you were going to want to collect the information per employee per week in the covered period, as well as some additional periods as well. Now, one of the great things about this is there's all kinds of places where it's educating you and letting you know what you need to do. There are question marks. Those question marks are full of great information. And as you can see, this is one of the areas that I think a lot of people need to be careful of. You cannot include independent contractors, owner employees like the self-employed individuals. Very important here. There was one bank that created a PPP loan for a business that included what he paid to contractors. But the reason independent contractors were not included in the PPP form or the PPP application was because they could go out and get their own PPP or EIDLs. So they were not to be included. So as you can see, if you choose different answers here, it gives you different options, okay? That's important to know. This one is fairly simple. You have some FTE reduction exceptions. Definitely read through that and be careful with it. Certainly reach out to your CPAs or me, and I can go over how that works. And as you can see, one of the things they're looking for is reduction in salary. And I just want to show you just how different these look. So if we hit no, the FTE reduction exception goes away. But in this case, this is one of those things where I'm a little bit worried about the calculations, but it'll be fine. So we've got 3 employees. 2 are hourly, 1 is salary. And as you can see, the first 2 did not have a reduction of 25% or more in their hourly wage. However, we have employee C here who did have a reduction that was more than 25%, and it is calculated that that reduces the forgiveness of the PPP loan by $975. Now, just to give you an idea of how that works, when we put in $50,000 here, you can see that there's no issue there whatsoever. However, if we put $70,000 in, now we have to answer additional questions. You have to know how much their salary was prior to COVID. You have to know how much their salary is now. And I do highly recommend that if you have reduced salaries or hourly wages, that you wait until you have fixed the problem, because we have until December 31st to fix the problem so that we can maximize the forgiveness. I don't necessarily think that it's going to fix it 100%, but if you have reduced salaries or hourly wages, wait until you can get that fixed again. I know we're running out of time. It's amazing how fast the year is going, but make sure you get that handled. Now, again, compensation to owners is something that is looked at separately. And one of the things that they're looking for all employees, to include the owners, is that they are not making more than $100,000, because anything over $100,000 is going to not count, and they are actually going to reduce that forgiveness a little bit. There was only so much money you could spend during the covered period. And then here's some additional stuff that you'll want to read through and check as you go through. Now we've got the FTE reduction safe harbor. So more FTE calculations. That's why I wanted to talk about that all by itself. That's why those spreadsheets are going to be so important. You're going to have to justify all of this. And then we're back to where it looked a lot the same as the EZ form. It's doing a calculation, it's compensation to owners, it's looking at any other payments you might have made. It's already calculated a reduction in forgiveness because of a salary or hourly wage reduction. It's calculated FTEs. These are the ones that we entered. This is where we stopped the last time, just to talk about FTEs a little bit more. And then it's auto-calculated what your payroll expenses are. Here we are at the grant. And then as we flow all the way through, you'll see actual forgivable amount is $24,264, and that the remaining loan balance after forgiveness is $2,436. Again, not calculating the EIDL advance grant into this calculation. Now, maybe they're doing it 2 screens ahead where I have chosen not to go, but I doubt it. It seems interesting that they wouldn't have that down here. That worries me a little bit. Just remember, whatever number is here, you're going to want to add the EIDL grant, unless, of course, they fix this error, and we'll go from there. And then here we are. Here is all of the paperwork that you can upload. And again, theoretically, they will go ahead and they will send this over to your bank. So you can download these. There's electronic signature allowed on a couple of them. Overall, in general, I'm really happy with this tool. I think it's going to make things a lot easier. It certainly organizes the way in which you collect the information. So all of you, make sure that you take some time, work your way through this. And I think we're all going to get through this in optimizing our PPP forgiveness.
And there you go. As you can see, a lot of people out there are working hard to try to make this process as simple for you as possible. It is still going to take some time for you. And while the system isn't perfect yet or may ever be perfect, it is definitely giving you something to work with to get yourself organized and to move forward doing something about the situation. Now, just remember to watch out for those calculations. Don't fall in love with that number if it's still not calculating in that grant that you may have received for the EIDL. Remember, things are changing, so always be doing your due diligence. And most importantly, remember, you are not alone in all of this. There are a lot of people out there like myself, like the AICPA as a company, trying to make this as easy on all of you as possible. So use those resources. Reach out. My contact information will be at the end of this video. Send me an email. I'm more than happy to answer a question to make sure that you maximize your forgiveness. In the meantime, everybody, good luck, stay on top of things, and don't wait until the last minute. We'll see you all next week.